Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Ivory Tower Boiler Room. This is Dr. Andrew Rimby. I am so excited to be joined with Curtis Chin. Here's a little information about Curtis. He is the co-founder of the Asian American Writers Workshop in New York City, which he served as the nonprofit's first executive director. He went on to write for network television before transitioning to social justice documentaries. He has screened his films at more than 600 venues in 16 countries. And he just told me that the book tour that he just came off of was over 200. I think he told me that he had done the talk at more than 200 places, which is just amazing. He's written for CNN, Bon Appetit, the Boston Globe's Emancipator. His work has been anthologized in the Best American Food Writing 2023. I'm assuming that you should read that when you're eating and not on an empty stomach. He's a graduate of the University of Michigan and a former visiting scholar at New York University. He's received awards from ABC Disney Television, the New York Foundation for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Arts, and much more. And I'm so happy to be joined with him to talk all things his memoir. Everything I learned in a Chinese restaurant, which I know he's going to tell us is being released as a paperback edition in October. So welcome to the ITBR, Curtis.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
So right away, I was so immersed in just the way that you situate yourself at the beginning of your memoir. And a question I had as I was reading is, how did you know, okay, this is now the time I need to center my family's restaurant, Chung's Cantonese Cuisine, at the heart of all of these awakenings in my life? Like, just how did you know it was time to write a memoir?
Oh, well, I don't know. I mean, my day job is writing for TV and film, so I do write professionally. But the idea of writing a memoir actually just sort of naturally developed. Just to take a step back and tell people what the book about, it's
Sure.
called Everything I Learned. I learned in a Chinese restaurant, and it's about growing up in my family's wonderful Chinese restaurant in the inner city of Detroit. This is during the 80s when it was a really difficult time period for the city. Not only was the auto industry, really taking a hit on the city, but there was crack cocaine, there was AIDS. I knew 5 people murdered by the time I was 18 years old. But at the same time, we had this wonderful Chinese restaurant right in the heart of the inner city where my parents were able to raise me and my five siblings. And so I've always had an appreciation for my family and the sacrifices that my mom and dad made to sort of open up doors and opportunities for me and my siblings. And I've always recognized that the person I am is because of what happened, and the values that I was taught, as a kid. But the idea of actually feeling that that was an important thing to write only came about, as I got older. And sadly, we did have to sell the restaurant after my dad passed away. And soon after that, my family all left Michigan. And when my siblings started having kids, I just thought it was really sad that this next generation of our family would not know this long history. Because my family had been in Michigan since the 1800s, right? There aren't very many Chinese people in that part of the country at that time. And so I just thought it was really fascinating history and story that I really wanted to pass on to that next generation. And so it started off as a real personal family project more than anything else.
And I remember you say that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Curtis, but was it one of your family members, the one who moved to Michigan, to Detroit? He had like seen that there was a similar town name as where he was coming from in China, and that's how he decided to move there.
Yeah, my great great grandfather moved from Canton, China to Canton, Ohio, before realizing there weren't actually any Chinese people there. And then he moved up to Detroit, which at the time was just starting the auto industry. And I like to say that, my family was in Detroit even before there was a Ford Motor Company or even Motown Records. And so when you think of that longevity, it's just amazing, right? Because at that time, it would really just it wasn't too long ago that it really was just a French colony. I mean, it's interesting.
Well, and like for the 1800s, what was like the American history or like the research you did for your memoir? What was the situation across America with you know, those who had just come from China, like, I know newly formed, like, Chinatowns. I grew up by Philly, so, like, there's a very prominent Chinatown, or even having gone to Manhattan, San Francisco. I think of, like, the iconic film Chinatown from the 1970s, but, was that not the case with Detroit? Like, it didn't necessarily, or this is when all of these, like, towns are forming because of recent immigrants from China.
Yeah. So the book really is about my own personal history. The way it's structured is eight stories in three sections. The three sections are elementary, middle school, high school, and then college. I did that because 888 is good luck to Chinese people. But I do start off the prologue talking about my family's history. And there's two reasons for that. One is, you know, A, or one, when you read about Asian American history, it's usually centered on the West Coast or the East Coast. You don't think about Asians being in, the middle part of the country. So I wanted to honor that history. The second is that I don't think you can know a person's history unless you know the family's history, right? Because so much about your desires, your wants, your values are all really set by your family. And so that was my reason for sort of exploring my family's history, as I mentioned. You know, do you want me to read anything, or is it just a conversation?
Well, I was gonna say, if you wanna read a section that you think,
Let me
will
tell
help
you.
illustrate this, I'd love that.